What's going on, guys? This is the Fueled Podcast. I'm Tom.
I'm Zach with ZO Motorworks.
And I'm Misha.
All right.
Indeed.
Now I feel awkward. I was the only one at it. Dang it.
We'll get it. We'll get it eventually.
I'm so bad at this.
I know. We're terrible.
I think they know who we are.
So, guys, today I think we're going to talk about something a little more serious on this podcast. Really, we kind of want to focus on safety, our experiences with safety equipment, and kind of what they've been doing in motorsports recently. Really, we kind of started talking about this last week or I should say this weekend, after Jessi Combs and Anthione Hubert. I'm 100% sure I got that first name wrong. The Formula 2 driver.
Yeah.
Both tragically passed racing cars. So we wanted to talk a little bit about safety and safety equipment and how serious you need to take motorsports if you're going to do this as a hobby. As we know, a lot of our viewers or listeners do, that this is a hobby for you guys, but we just want to make sure that everybody's taking it the level of seriousness we think it deserves. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of what we're going to talk about today. So I just wanted to give a little bit of context. So Jessi Combs was in a jet car. They were trying to set a world record. But she also raced an off-road truck. She was on a Power Nation TV show. She participated in most of the big SEMA and PRI event type things where she was working at booths and was a representation of a lot of different companies, and was just overall like really good for motorsports in the United States, I think.
Yeah. And she was an inspiration for a lot of people too.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, she was a big figure for women, especially.
Yeah.
Because like she started the All Girl Garage on Velocity. That was the thing for a little while.
Yeah, I didn't know she started that, but yeah, I knew she was on that.
Yeah, she did that, and then obviously for a lot of people know her from Mythbusters, which she hosted in 2009 and 2010.
Oh yeah, she was one of them.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I saw there was a little snippet of something that Adam Savage tweeted out saying, hey, you know, this is an incredible loss to the community, and she was not only brilliant, but she was an excellent fabricator, just all around car person.
She was fast too, which I mean, like specifically in what we're talking about, you know, we're not talking about an inexperienced driver who got into a car that was above their head. We're talking about somebody who had every qualification to be in that car, you know, which is the part that I think always strikes me the most. You know, I come from drag racing as like most of my background, and drag racing has always been one of the most dangerous extreme sports. Partially due to the massive community that does go drag racing as amateurs, even at tracks and everything. It's just dangerous. It's a really violent sport physically in terms of like what's happening to the car, inside the car, how the driver feels. And so because of that, I've always been a big proponent of more safety equipment in fast street cars than most people, you know, because I come from that. I'm used to 5-point harnesses and helmets and neck braces and arm restraints and all that stuff. And I think that a lot of guys, especially guys who do street racing and guys who take their car to the track every once in a while, I don't think they take it seriously enough, at least, because even though you're just going down the track, in your street prepared car, horrible things can happen. And I think we just kind of wanted to take this time, kind of touch on our experiences and just kind of say, hey guys, just remember that like what you're doing as your hobby is also something that is dangerous by pretty much every measure. I
think you actually put it in the best terms whenever you mentioned it to me, but you said that we're actually considering doing the Champ Car series in our little group that we have, and he said, hey, you guys, you need to basically be prepared to potentially not come back from this. And that actually kind of hit me pretty hard, because I was like not really thinking about how, you know, it is a race and there is inherent dangers in the race, but you don't necessarily think about it up front, because like we're thinking about racing like a Subaru or something like that. But even in retrospect, like a lot of things can happen, a lot of potential dangers there. And that for me really was what kind of set it back. And I was like, hey, okay, like you really got to take it seriously. You just need to respect the motorsport and for what it is, and have fun, but do it safe.
I think the big thing, and I say this probably a lot to people who hang out with me, and especially in the car community, guys who hang out with me, and I think they've kind of probably gotten tired of hearing it, but I think you have to be aware that if you're doing any type of racing, every time you get in the car could be the last time you see any of those people. And so one of the things that I really enjoyed, I recently watched the Subaru program on Amazon Prime called Launch Control. And one of the things I really enjoyed is that the guys who are doing that, they seem to have like kind of a ritual every time they're getting, when the car's in service, and before they leave, like one of the drivers goes around and like he says, like almost not like goodbye, but like thanks everybody for what they did before he ever puts on his helmet, before he ever gets in the car, and that type of thing. And I think that like I respected that a lot because
it puts it in perspective too. Sure.
Those guys know they're racing at a level in a also extremely dangerous sport that I think they probably are very aware that a couple bad things could happen. And it's not a lot of times that when the horrible accidents happen, there's nobody like at fault, really. It's just
it's just the inherent danger.
You're pushing the limits of whatever it is you're trying to do. So I just think we wanted to do this. I brought this up because this is a big thing for me, and I wanted to do this just to talk about how important I think it is, really, probably. I probably pushed for this one a little bit.
Yeah, you did. Yeah. It's true, though.
So, Misha, you have some experience with some dangerous circumstances. And I think, I think it'd be good for the people who've been doing motorsports and that kind of thing to like really have a grasp on like, you were in a car that was in a pretty severe accident,
Twice.
So
twice. I didn't know that.
Two wrecks.
Were they both in the Miata, or were they...
No, neither one of them were Miata.
Or not Miata.
I wouldn't be here if it was in Miata.
Yeah, I know.
First one was in the Saab, in the old 900.
Oh, that's right.
Up at Ojibwe Rally.
Yeah, because you have a big background in rally.
I don't know how many years ago that was actually, but I'd have to look. But maybe like 5. I don't remember. Yeah, I mean, what really saved us? You can. How do you want me to? Just.
Really, just kind of, being.
We had all the safety. Obviously, rally is. We got a cage. Now, some of the older cars have what's called grandfathered in cages. So these are cages that were built on older rules, and they're not the safest cages. But one thing that is a plus is they're very easy to get in and out of. So on a standpoint. Like, for instance, on a co-driver standpoint, the fact that the co-drivers to get out a lot, especially a big rally where there's a lot of cars and time control is very congested and all that stuff, and the co-driver literally has to be out of the car constantly, it's a lot easier for the co-driver to get out of a car that is built a long time ago versus a car that is just, Rubik's Cubed in there for sure. So the Saab was great, and the fact that it was a pretty decent. It was a Group 5 car, turbo front wheel drive car that is built like a tank, but it's up to the driver whether or not they want to push it real hard because it is slightly fragile powertrain. You just have to know how to drive it. But you have in rally, you have the fire suit, you have the cage, you have the 5-point harness, you have the Hans, and you have the proper helmet. And it's up to you as you leave to make sure all that stuff's tight and correct. And that specific rally had a Hans that was a little too big, but it was fine. The Hans sits here, and then you can, your two shoulder belts go over it. And as long as it's tight, it really doesn't move around, and then the helmet clips to it, so you can't do this.
So Hans is head and neck secure?
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
So Hans basically, it has, so it's got the fiberglass.
Carbon
whatever these things are. Whatever you would call this that comes down here. And the belt goes over here, over it. And then the helmet has the clips on the side. So then you have these tethers, and they're tethered to the Hans. So you really, basically if you go in a wreck like this, so your head won't overextend or your neck won't overextend. And
for those of you who don't wear helmets a lot, even race car helmets are different than motorcycle helmets, and they're lighter in most cases because they're not meant for
straight impact on the ground or anything.
Right,
Yeah.
they're meant for bouncing around,
Off a roll cage but
they are still heavy. So think about how much strain it is if you whip your head back and forth with nothing on it, and then add a helmet weight on top of that.
Exactly.
And I think the Hans device is really designed to save from neck injuries in a lot of different things, and. Rally is not the only one that requires it now. Most SCCA, NASA, and like the Champ car that we're looking at doing requires it. A lot of drag racing requires it now. So I mean, it's become pretty much industry standard, I think.
And it's a smart thing to have for sure. The Saab was a rear impact. I say rear, but it was a slide situation. If I recall, it was like left 3 over crest kind of thing, and it slid, it hit a tree, and when it hit the tree, it spun the car completely around, and he wasn't able to recover, and it went into a ditch into 2 trees, like hard parked us into 2 trees, like instant. So the feeling that I got, it was very instant. There wasn't really time to think. What they train you in rally is that if you're okay, you got to get out of the car and alert the next car if it's cool. Now we had 2 trees down across the stage that over the crest you couldn't see.
Oh gosh.
So the driver freaked out a little bit. It wasn't too bad, but he was losing his what, and I was just like, you okay? Of course my adrenaline was pretty incredible. I don't remember it exactly, but I just remember I was just like on fire, like 50 Red Bulls kind of thing. And once I got semi-okay from him, then I jumped out and said, if you can get those trees, I'll sprint down down this hill to try to alert somebody. And I just remember laughing the whole time I'm sprinting because I was going so fast downhill. It's like, I am going to lose it any second. And I saw him a helmet and Hans and everything on him. Like, what? There's nothing to do. And I alerted them, and he was able to drag the trees out. They weren't big trees, but that's a decent sized tree, as if you've, a car ticket down. So
decent sized potential speed bump.
Well, it would be very alarming for the next guy that wouldn't know that's there.
Right.
He can either go over it and hope everything's okay, or freak out at the last second and slam on the brakes, and then he would be in the exact same position we were in. Plus, the car was hidden, and you really couldn't see it because it had gone into the woods ever so slightly. We did try for a second to back it out, but front-wheel drive turbo car, and it's just,
Well, I think we're
just digging ditches.
That's an interesting thing about the rally car situation too, is that it is so much different. Where you don't have the safety crew on site every time. You know what I mean?
It's the next car. So
right.
the first responder is always the next car.
Right.
And it's a rally community, so everybody's usually thinking about safety and doesn't want anybody to die and all that stuff. So
I think part of that is what you build into your community as you build the race and attract people to it for that kind of stuff. I think that matters a lot. The difference with some of the racing that happens on track is they do have the safety cars and stuff, but there's still a level of you have to pay attention as the next car in line.
And fire is always
going
to be rally cars have that too, but drag racing, obviously the fear of fire is going to be a lot greater than it is in a rally car. Well, maybe.
I don't know. Honestly, I think
I don't know. It depends on what the impact is.
Yeah, all the fuel catches on fire.
Yes,
all the oil will catch on fire eventually.
That's true.
So
yeah,
I think it's interesting. When you look at the Formula 2 crash with Hubert, and you kind of see some of the pictures that you saw, like that car was in really bad shape afterwards, and I'd be interested to see. The FIA immediately was like, okay, we're gonna investigate this crash and look at all the things that happened, and they are a big governing body with a lot of pull in road course racing of all types to say, okay, this is a new standard.
Yeah.
like the halo that they added to Formula One. A lot of guys hated that. A lot of the consumers were like, "Oh, it's no longer open cockpit racing. Like, what's the thing?" Which is, look, I get that, like, you think it should be open cockpit 100%, but also, like, it's a person's life inside the car, and if that thing has a chance of saving someone's life, I think at some point it becomes, the benefit has to be there. And then I think it was the first year in one of the first races, they had a car go up over another car from the back, and the only thing that stopped the car on top from clipping the helmet off of the other guy was the halo.
Wow.
And like for me, that was enough. That was like the first time, and I was like, wow, like it did exactly what it was supposed to do. IndyCar's been running the halo for a while. They kind of said the same thing. Like this is exactly what it's for. Is for these type of accidents where you either go upside down or somebody comes over top of you, which does happen in open wheel racing more frequently than you probably realize. When you start really looking at how like the accidents over the course of a year, and you're like, wow, that happened more than once this year.
Yeah.
And then there was a driver. I think a lot of what did it is there was a driver a few years before that didn't, before they had the halo, that ended up passing in the hospital. I want to say it was months later, honestly. And I'm blanking on his name right now, but it was because he went under something and hit the bottom of a
Barricade.
No, I believe it was actually a crane, one of those crane trucks. One of the trucks off to the side. Yeah, it was really bad. I forget exactly what it is, and I'll post the link to one of the stories in the description. But yeah, I mean, all that stuff. These guys do know what they're doing, I think, and I think that as people who participate in motorsports, you should take the rules seriously that these guys come forth with. That the FIA, the sanctioning bodies, the SCCA, the basic competition rules package that the Champ Car and SCCA and those guys run on. I think all that stuff is like important. Rally probably has the same type of thing with like a certain set of here's what we need to do.
Oh yeah.
Well,
a lot of rules.
The helmets are FIA certified, or they're Schnell certified, or Shell.
Snell is for motorcycle though.
Yeah, but if you have a SA 2010 certification, you can actually use that helmet in rally.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Can you?
Yeah, it's either FIA certified 8860 from 2004 to 2010 or 8859 in 2015, or it's SAH 2010, SA 2010, or SA 2015 certified.
Did you sleep at all last night?
No, I had to ask Misha. I was like, hey, what's the best resource for like rally safety stuff? And he was like, oh, just the ARA.
rule book.
Yeah, the rule book. And I was like, okay. So I just
Got
read that a little
rails.
bit.
I think for a lot of the people who watch this as not being guys who are out there racing with teams and that kind of stuff, I think what you have to decide for yourself is, we can't tell you what horsepower level or how fast your car has to be for a cage, but I think you should kind of decide for yourself, looking at the other cars, looking at how fast your car would go if you were to drag race it regularly, or how fast your car would be on a road course, or like what class you would qualify for, and look at what safety they recommend, and then kind of decide, okay, what am I doing with this car? What should I have? And that's for each person. But the big thing for this was just like kind of hey guys, we want all of our people that we know, that we like, that we talk to, that are our friends. We want you guys to like take it seriously, I guess, is kind of what it boils down to. At least for me, like, take how fast your car really is seriously.
Yeah, because I mean, the scary thing for me, just looking at just cars in more recent years, I mean, 1,000 horsepower is like 2008's 500 horsepower.
Yeah, I talk about that
these
pretty
days.
regularly.
I mean, it's just like you can get it so easily, and a lot of people just jump right up to that like 4-digit figure and not think about anything else. I mean, it's so easy to get that power level, and I mean, you can seriously get into some sticky situations with that kind of power level.
Yeah, I mean, even
Less.
yeah, I was just saying,
Way less.
500, 600, 700 horsepower. I mean,
Even
those
less
cars,
than that, yeah.
they move out. Like, it really, you eat up a lot of real estate, and I don't think people really understand how how much real estate those cars, how much real estate you're taking up at 120, 130, 140 miles an hour, you know, like you're gaining on whatever's in front of you real fast, you know? And I think motorcycle guys, the guys who ride like the fast bikes, I think they get a really good judge of that over time, because a lot of the guys that I've known that have been motorcycle guys when they were younger, when they do end up in cars and like fast cars, they take the safety super serious.
Yeah, I mean, it actually helps, for sure, getting that perspective.
Yeah, the perspective of, oh, everything could really go wrong, you know? So, well, I don't know if you guys have anything else to add, but this is just kind of something we wanted to make as a, you know, kind of a remembrance. Not that we really had any connection to those people outside of, you know, being race fans and just fans of the products that they participated in. But, you know, just to kind of talk about safety a little bit. I will say one thing, that if you're out there watching and you have questions about like safety equipment or any of that kind of stuff, like, hey, here's what I make, what do you think I should have, blah, 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 100%, you know, we will help you answer those questions.
Absolutely.
You know, that's something that like I said, I take super seriously, and I'm sure Misha does too after his experience in race cars and stuff. So I think, you know, that's something that we should, we're definitely willing to help you guys with if that's what you need. So, and
if we don't know offhand what exactly you're looking for or what information we need to give you, we can definitely probably figure out where to find it.
Well, we know all the people, like a lot of the right people to talk to about it. So. Anything else to add, Misha?
I just wanted to say that it's not, and I also feel that it's not just for, you know, it's not on the drag strip or the rally course, but it's important to think about that stuff too when you have, you know, a 300, 400 horsepower car and you're out there driving it on the street as well. That just you know, think about that, and not so much as safety equipment as far as that's concerned, but just understand, kind of like you said, you're pulling up so fast on the car in front of you or other cars to the right or left of you that if you got a lot of horsepower, but if you don't have a lot of brake, you got to think about that. You got to think about, in a panic situation, what will you actually do, and how quickly can you react when that, are you just going to panic and freak out, you know, or are you going to not, you know, like I have a story that my wife tells all the time that, you know, for snow, you know, she's from California. She doesn't know what snow is. And her last car wasn't a great all-wheel drive car, but it was an all-wheel drive car. And she never really liked driving in the snow. And so I said, there's not really much to drive in the snow. Just remember that if you're in a panic situation, you slam the brakes, it makes everything 100 times worse. The best thing to do is to release the throttle, figure out what you want to do, point, and then throttle through. And she had an issue when we had a couple of years ago, we had a really bad snowstorm that just came. She had me working that night, and she was out actually, that was the year of that rally when it snowed. Were you there?
Oh, was that the one where I got my name?
Huh?
Was that the one where I got my name?
No, it's probably a couple of years, but it snowed really bad, like during the rally.
Oh, no. So that was, I want to say
4 years ago, I think.
Yeah, it was a lot. It was a while. We were there, and I mean, we had like, it was pretty nutty.
I want to say it was 4 years ago.
Yeah. Well, it was that night, and so I was at the rally, and she had called me. Of course, I didn't have any cell service, and she said, I don't know what to do. I don't think I can make it home. It dumped, you know, whatever, like dump a foot, you know, within a few hours or something. Mm-hmm. And so, since she didn't get a hold of me, she's like, "Oh, I'm gonna try it." And she was coming through Wildwood, and she says, you know, she was coming to, and the light turned red, and cars were like, you know, freaking out. And she decided, she's like, I can't stop. I put on the brake, and so since she remembered what I said, and she goes, it was incredible, because she's like, I want to go there, and there's nobody else coming. She pointed the car, gave it a little throttle, and it pulled all the way through until she felt safe, and then she could. It was just, you know, when I got home, she was all like, oh my God, I survived, you know, and all. It's just, you know, and she just knew that one little step that I told her, instead of, you know, she would have just done what everybody else did and just slammed on the brakes. And then what do you do? She doesn't know how to scrub speed or anything. Mm-hmm. So it's just, you know.
That's almost exactly
a nightmare.
Exactly why I tell people to go do high performance driving experiences, go do drag racing, go do all this stuff, because you do learn that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Like, you figure out the limit of the car and like what you're capable of, and then you can work on it. You know, whatever it is,
and how quickly you can react, you know?
Exactly. And I think that's important for people to learn too. So yeah, same kind of thing, you know, pay attention everywhere, but, you know.
Yeah. I mean, we get a lot of questions when we build these big cars, you know, usually if, let's say it's for a younger kid and the parent will be, what do you think? You know, is this safe? I'm like, well, you know, I don't know if it's safe. It's just they have to be safe with it. You know, they have to understand what they have now and not just how much money they have into it. But it could potentially, you know, cause a very major problem for them or the car. And
I think it's a learning curve for a lot of guys too, because a lot of guys who start with, you know, a stock car that's fast, quote unquote, and then, you know, they'll start doing modifications, and then all of a sudden now you've got a car that makes 600 horsepower, and then it's like, oh, this car is like actually fast. And then it takes, in my experience, the guys who go that route, what they end up doing is like getting out of that car, getting into something that's fast for the type of thing that they want to do. And then they start learning from there. And then they eventually build back up to a car that's that fast. But they kind of go like, they kind of jump to that big power number because that's what everybody likes. And then they come backwards to something that they can learn with. And then they go build up to it again. That's like my experience with a lot of guys that I know. So,
well, it's smart to, you know, other countries, for instance, will have like motorcycling is a great, example of that is because they'll start you out with a smaller bike until you can, you know, master that smaller bike and then move on to the bigger. You know, I get a lot of questions about, you know, hey, I want to build a rally car. I've never done this before. Blah, 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 blah. I want this turbo STI, blah, 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 all this stuff. Like, yeah, it's great and all, but do you want to spend a lot of money on a car you can't compete in? Or do you want to build something cheaper, like a 120 horsepower car? If you can dominate in a 120 horsepower car, then you can always add modifications to it. But if you start out with a 300 horsepower car, you're not really going to have the correct skill set. I mean, not everybody, obviously, but most people are not going to have the correct skill set to push that car to the limit, because the car has to be pushed to the limit.
Yeah.
You can't just have a lot of power and just like, you know, power, you know, blip its way through it. That's not what racing is. That's what rally is. Rally is it's a slingshot, you know, and you want to make sure that you're using all that tension all the time, you know, and it's otherwise it's just, that's when all the accidents happen. This is when you don't know when to give it what kind of throttle, when to give it throttle, when to brake, when to left foot brake. I mean, you don't know any of this stuff, and you just, you know, you see it. I've seen it before. We see a lot of you know, new builds that come through. And you're just thinking, like, why the STI? Why would it be an STI? You know, like, and it's at the end of the pack, and it's just like, you know, and kind of like, and then you got some other dude, you know, in like an 87 Golf that sounds like it's going to explode for 3 solid days, yet it never explodes, and it's still beating, you know, but he's pushing it to, that's everything it has.
I think that that applies to a lot of the racing classes too. You know, like these really, any form of racing has some type of build like that. Build like where they have the levels to it, you know? And so I think it's important to figure out where your skill set is, build your skill set from like an actual like solid foundation. If you're going to go racing, I think like don't jump into the big boy stuff.
Yeah.
Like
it's not a video game. You can't just, you know, pick that and like, oh, I didn't do well now. Let me get the, you know, I've already got time and money invested in this one.
Well, and the money thing, and not only that, but you know, you start racing some of this stuff and you stuff it because you're not there. Your skill set's not there.
Exactly. And then where's this car?
Done, you know?
Yeah, it's over. Once the cage is bent, it's over.
Cars are very humbling.
Oh, of course.
I think
you've been stuck in rush hour traffic. That's humbling in itself, you know, like, and half the people are eating lunch or breakfast, you know, and putting on makeup and you're just like, oh my God, there's a lot
Speaking of traffic, guess how many, on average, hours Americans spend in their car per year in traffic?
I don't know.
Ooh,
random fun fact of the day.
I want to guess.
Hours per year.
Hours per year.
4.
862.
Not nearly enough, and like over the moon. 48 hours is on average per American. How many hours?
A year? What?
In your car in rush hour traffic.
That must be considering people who don't take the car. Because you like work 2,020 hours a year or something like that, right? Is it 2020?
I'm always here, so I don't know.
Yeah, but how many people commute like a long distance for
I mean, I bet you.
48 hours?
I guarantee
on,
you.
on average? Yeah.
I guarantee you, I'm driving 5 hours a week at a minimum.
Are you?
I guarantee you.
Where do you go?
Just like all the little.
Oh,
trips
a
that you
week.
make. Yeah, a week.
Oh, okay.
All the little trips that you
They
make.
said a day. Yeah, like, where do you go? Yeah.
Here.
Here.
I go here.
I come here. I just take the long way. In reverse.
I come here and then I go home. And then I come here and I go home.
And I come here, and I go home. Yeah.
So
48. That seems low.
seems low. I think you're wrong.
Yeah.
They might be.
Where did you find this information?
Well, where else?
I don't know.
Wikipedia.
No, it was a sanctioned source.
Sanctioned source?
Yeah.
Okay, was it in the Encyclopedia Britannica?
It was Vice News.
It was T or T. What is the stupid tabloid?
TMZ.
people? Yeah, it was TMZ.
Oh, is that
no,
TMZ?
I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. It's not actually them. But no, it was. I think they might be like looking at a small spectrum of what traffic could be considered. Like, so they're probably on the lines of like stop and go versus just like
we have
kind of being slow on the highway.
let me just Google it.
I mean, just how much do you think? How much time do you think the average LA living person spends in their car a week? I mean, there's 7 days, so at least an hour each direction, no matter where they're going, right?
Oh, I mean, that's LA though. Like you're in a certain portion of the population anyway that experiences high volume of traffic.
Yeah, but that's like a whole state with a lot of people.
Speaking of LA, true or false? There are more cars than people in LA.
True.
Yeah, absolutely.
That probably also includes the massive trucking ports that are there, though.
Probably.
All right, so instead of
I can't. This is too much information.
instead of dead air, I think we'll go ahead and be done with this.
Yeah.
Anyway, like I
You
said,
get the gist of it.
you guys have any safety questions, anything you want to talk about that you want our opinion on from guys who do race and are up to speed on as much of it as we can keep up with, let us know. Like, seriously, we will 100% help you out with that stuff. So
No, so just just a tribute to Jessi Combs and Anthione Hubert. Pretty significant losses there, and just hoping their families are being supported by everybody who like me had a great deal of liking for those people.
yeah, I mean, you consume a lot of their content, and then you kind of grow respect for them over time. I think it's important to remember too, like, those are only the recent ones. Like, that's been a week,
Yeah.
and I think it's been a week since those two, and it guarantee you it won't be the only ones in motorsports this year, and I guarantee you it won't be the only high profile ones in motorsports this year.
Oh no, unfortunately.
Kind of why we just wanted to talk about this for a little bit, and anyway, want to sign us off, Tom?
Yeah. Alrighty, guys. I'm Tom with Dyno Pro.
Zach, ZL Motorworks.
Misha with Ecotech.
And we're the Field Podcast. Thanks, guys, for watching. We'll see you next week.
See ya.
See ya.
Bye.
God, that was so.
Can I touch you now?
Yeah.